What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
I got it. Hello, everyone. Here
Welcome.
we are. Yes,
Wow,
welcome.
I was concerned.
No, I'm all set, right? Even if Mike is not here today, I got it covered.
Which one is Mike?
He's the one that doesn't come a lot.
It doesn't look like any of us.
Yeah. Here we are.
There used to be fucking
So,
one.
yeah. Hey, good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see your numbers. We don't see your face, but we see a number that represents every single one of you. So good to have you here. We have an opening question. We always have an opening question. And today's opening question is this. Other than where you work now, what is the best place you've ever worked? Don't put in where you work now. I don't want anybody to feel pressured to do that. And so we'll just take that opportunity off the table. But other than where you work now, what's the best place you've ever worked and why?
Sanjay, do you want to give your little spiel about the drop-down box?
Yes.
Do
Should
that.
be able to drop. So you like my answer?
Yeah, EOW, woohoo, yes.
This
Wait,
is not
doesn't work mean you get paid?
Oh,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I get paid with love.
Ah.
I just want to point out this is why we actually ask people to do a question at the beginning, because we want to make sure that you're answering it properly, because a lot of people's default doesn't default to everyone. It defaults only to panelists and hosts. So we ask questions so that we can make sure people are, that's not really why we do it, but whatever.
That's not the only reason, but yeah. So we've got somebody who worked at Walgreens Distribution Center. Loved your team. Okay.
Oh,
All right.
excellent.
Thank you, David.
And obviously this is a tough question. People
Yeah,
didn't like
because people are
anywhere they worked. So.
people are thinking, okay, this is the only good place I've ever worked. I learned from the bad places to make this company better. Okay.
Oh, that's
All right.
nice.
All right. That's a pretty good answer.
Jennifer's sucking up to her employee.
I know her boss is on the line too, so that's why.
Yeah. It's been so long since I worked for someone other than me. So it's hard to answer this, but I will say the best job I ever had, other than what I do now, was with AT&T, but it was one of the worst companies I've ever worked for. But
And that's
the job.
That's actually a good point you bring up,
Mhm.
right? Because you can be a microcosm and a macrocosm of a shitstorm, and be shielded and love your team, or vice versa. You can be working for a wonderful organization,
And
but
be in a
you've got
really
jerk
bad
next to you.
Yeah, that happens all the time. I was an international telephone operator. It was the most fun I ever had at work before I became a professional speaker. But the company was an awful company to work for. But
Did
it
you
was a
have to do
long
this a
time ago.
lot?
I think it's even worse now. What? Yes,
you
I
have to
had an
do this a lot?
old-timey switchboard and everything. I talked to people all over the world all day. It was a barrel of fun.
I don't understand. How does this affect the internet? This is weird.
Yeah, we didn't even know what internet was going to mean. Kangaroo Express, Fritz,
Wait,
good. Okay.
had we known, we wouldn't be here right now. So
That's
just
right,
saying.
yeah, that's right. Gold mine, always interesting, great staff, lots of moral support, fun spirit. Good, thank you,
Wait,
Pamela.
I want to know what gold mine is.
Yeah, can you tell us, Pamela?
Yeah, let us know. So we should get started.
Yeah. As a very reluctant company, I can confirm that AT&T is still awful. Okay. Jennifer, thank you. This is a long
Tell us
time
what you
ago.
really think.
Hosts International. She was young. When you're young, you find a way to have fun. Thank you, everybody, for contributing there. We'll keep looking at that. But we do need to go ahead and get started. And today is Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. And you'll notice that Michael Kerr is not here today.
And you know, that's his only duty. So if we can replace
it's
him.
his most important duty. Yeah.
You know what? I don't want to be judgy, but I noticed though, Richard, that you didn't have a comma and Michael has a comma. So, that's the.
Oh, okay. Well, he's in Canada. I'm in Florida.
Yeah, but if we oust him, we get to split the proceeds 3 ways.
That's right.
Okay. Hey, listen, Pamela answered our question. Coronado Gold Mining Company in Alaska.
Ah, okay.
Very, very good.
Well, there's a literal name.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Where's
So
the name from?
anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'd be happy to, since I haven't been here for a little while either. But I'm Jeff Tobe, coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And yes, I have a man cold. You know what that is, right? It's very different than a regular cold. I'm probably going to die. So it's been nice, guys. I speak and train in customer experience. As a matter of fact, I spent the last 2 days in Connecticut training a company how to implement a customer experience initiative. So had a lot of fun. Glad to be here. Sanjay.
I'm not gonna lie, but I hear you talk and my eyes start to water. Is that bad?
You're just sad for me? Is that it?
No, it's just like I've like, you just know that cold feeling. Anyway, my
I got
name
my
is
Kleenex
Sanjay.
box right here.
There you go. I'm your river. My name is Sanjay Nath. I am based just outside of Toronto. I am a speaker and author who focuses on leadership and performance, and best known by a concept and ideology called the 10-80-10 principle. Mr. Haddon.
All right, thank you. And I'm Richard Haddon, and I'm an author and speaker. I wrote Contented Cows Give Better Milk and all of the books that came after it with similar titles. And I live in Jacksonville, Florida. And my eyes are watering a little today too. And one of the reasons for that is that yesterday I had cataract surgery on my second eye. I decided I'm not going to have a third one. I've had two, and that's fine. And I can see better than I have seen in decades.
Hold on a
Already
second. Hold
just
on a
in
second.
post.
Don't you want the third eye? Like, isn't that
That's your
premonition?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's in
Chakra.
one of your chakras, right?
Yes.
But I don't have a cataract on that particular, on my third eye. So in fact, I don't have a cataract on any of my eyes anymore. It's
Which is
great.
very cool. And I just think it's funny. Can you just do this with your glasses, please? Just show.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Because-
Perfect.
So I'm just not used to myself without glasses, and so I'm not gonna submit you all to that either.
I mean, it's been like 40 or 50 years, right?
That I've worn glasses.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You're not even 40 or 50 years old. I don't follow the math.
I know. I was an infant with glasses. But you will also notice that we are in slightly subdued lighting mode today because my eyes feel great. They're fine, but light is not particularly good today. It'll be better in the next few days. So
As an ode to everyone on the call, I just wanted to show them the T-shirt that I'm wearing today, and that's an ode to all Canadians and all Americans. I support you all. Okay, go. Sorry.
It's great. And I do like what Carol said. She had 3 hip replacements. Yeah. My son has broken 3 arms. So yeah, I mean, these things happen. It's true. It's true. All right. So today, you know what we thought we'd talk about, guys?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. What is that, Jeff?
No,
We're going to talk about great places to work.
Yeah.
And I think the question gave it away right from the beginning. So
yeah. No,
right.
I wanted to I started thinking about this some time ago. I saw an article that came somehow into my inbox, and it was talking about the best supermarket to work for in the United Kingdom. Well, as some of you know, I've spent a good bit of time in the UK, and I'm familiar with this store. It's called Iceland. Yeah, it's not in Iceland, it's in the UK. And it's primarily a frozen food store, which is why it's called Iceland. And I thought, a supermarket known as a great place to work. That reminds me of Wegmans, which is, of course, in the United States and has for years, like close to 20 years, been on very close to the top of Fortune's list of 100 best companies to work for. So
Yeah.
I thought,
And Richard, I'm sure Loblaws is in there too somewhere.
okay, probably.
No, I'm
some.
kidding. I'm kidding. You don't know this.
Okay. All right. Okay. I sometimes use Wegmans as an example when I'm speaking, and the interesting thing to me is that it's a supermarket. It's not a high-tech, super sexy, glamorous, the kind of place that you would think of as being a great place to work. And yet, since it's been on this list for like 20 years, it's probably pretty legit that it is. So then I started thinking, what about other great places to work, not only in the United States and Canada, but in other parts of the world? And so we found a few that we thought were pretty interesting, and I just wanted to highlight a few of those.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest surprise for me was the #1 company. And I'm shocked. And we had this discussion offline. It's Hilton, by the way.
Hilton
And
Hotels.
Hilton Hotels. And I'm going to assume, Richard, that it is just corporate, right? I can't imagine that it's not the actual hotels themselves, since they're mostly managed by separate companies.
Yeah.
So yeah, they what was interesting to me is 90% employees gave the culture at Hilton a 90% score and said that it's a great place to work. that 88% said my work has special meaning. It's not just a job. And I think that's something that the reason I even delved into this was because that's where we want our employees, right? You call it the extra oomph, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The oomph factor, going above and beyond, having that impact at work. I think that's one of the things we've I think all agreed on this over the last 4 years that we've been doing this, that's one of the most important things that people want in a job is the knowledge that they're doing something that makes a difference.
Yeah. And the other thing that struck me was as I went through the list, the number of companies who had high scores for their employees saying that they felt like they received a fair share of the profits.
Oh,
so, we've never talked about profit sharing because none of us are big enough to share profits, although I share them with my wife. And
I mean, she shares with you.
Whatever. And no, seriously. And I don't know why that struck me as being one of the consistent numbers in most of these.
Well, I think one of the things we want to talk about in a future episode would be profit sharing in companies. And also Carol brought up, in an email to the four of us, the issue of employee owned companies. So Carol, thank you for bringing that up. We're going to look at that in a future episode as well.
Yeah.
But you're right. The number of people who said, they didn't say, I'm necessarily happy with my salary, but they appreciated the way that they were compensated in a way that was based on profit.
Right.
One of the things though too is when we're looking at the companies that are considered best to work for, is just an observation that it doesn't change dramatically from year to year. Meaning it's not like one is Valvent's rank in the first year and up to number one in the second. By the way, we'll share the link with people, but I don't think we should put it in the chat box now. Otherwise, they're not going to listen to us. They're just going to look up the list.
I agree.
We'll throw that in at the end. But it's the other thing too, which was interesting about this list, and there's only 25 on this list. This is the Fortune 100 best companies to work for, according to Fortune. Most of these companies are good size. Like there's one, Bacardi, which is 8,000, and then everything else is 11,000 employees and up, and as many as 400, 500,000 employees. Yeah. So when people make this argument about, oh, we're too big or we're too small, we don't have this, we don't have that, I don't think it's individual based as much as, are people willing to, like people in the key positions, are they willing to try to make it work? Whether it be from a team and there's only 15 of us, or from a much higher level going, okay, of the 100,000, how do we get people engaged? And it isn't necessarily about throwing money at them, right?
That's one of the, not even at the very top of the list. Yeah. We have a technical note that has come in saying that I sound like I'm in a box, and the two of you sound like you're just fine. Are you hearing me in a box, you two guys?
I are not.
No, sounds good to me.
Oh, Jennifer is, Rob is. Gosh, I don't know what to do.
Can I suggest, Richard, you think outside the box?
Excuse me? You really going to say that out loud?
No, really. All right. So if I do this,
what about color outside the lines?
Different, totally fine to me. How is this? Does this make any difference? Is this any better?
We'll let the audience tell us.
Yeah. Oh, Fritz says it's better.
Okay.
Jennifer says no. So Jennifer, I might suggest that you go over to Fritz's. Oh no, wait a minute. That's not going to work. All right, I'm going to try one more thing, better or worse. We are back to the eye doctor. Bob Friedman says, oh no. So if I change my microphone to this one, now what happens when I change my microphone to that? I just changed to a different one.
Sounds incredible.
No, really. That's better. All right, we'll just go with that. I don't know what the problem is. Very good. Thank you. We have fixed that problem.
I believe you just went through maturity. You just hit puberty right there, like 30 seconds ago.
Hey, thank you, everyone. Lisa says it has. Oh, now I sound boxy to Carol. Oh no.
Okay. Anyway, you can't please everybody, right? So let's focus, guys. Focus.
I'm going to show you how I can please a whole bunch of people. Check this out. Ready?
Yeah, that sounds good, Sanjay.
Perfect.
So listen, we should probably be clear about what we're getting. Where we're getting our information from. And so what I looked for first was something called the Great Place to Work Institute. And it's kind of a clearinghouse, and they do surveys all over the world with very large employers. It's actually quite a big operation. And then Fortune magazine is kind of a subset of that, and they're the ones that come out with that list each year for the United States. And there are other bodies in Canada and in Europe and in Asia and other places like that. But I've kind of looked at the Great Place to Work Institute as kind of a clearinghouse for a lot of these places. And so I'm looking at the world's best workplaces for 2023, which is the last one that came out. And as Jeff has pointed out, number one is Hilton. And they are, of course, in the US, headquartered in McLean, Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Let me just give one more observation, if I can, and not Hilton specific, but as I went through the list, the other thing that struck me was there's typically 5 different scores that they use. And they varied, but mostly was that meaning that, you know, they're doing meaningful work. They get to share the profits. Management involves in the decision-making process. And management does a good job of assigning and coordinating people. And then number 5 was like people celebrate special events here, or no one ever forgets my birthday, or like it was that kind of one thing that was completely different than the others. So that was interesting, and I wonder how they obviously do. Let's go to the base of this. They obviously do employee engagement surveys.
Yes, I know. Yes, so they do a survey that has a number of questions, and what we're seeing in the results here are, I guess, the top 5 scores for each company.
Right.
And you're right. So many of them are the same. A big one is, I feel I make a difference here, about being involved in decisions that affect their jobs and their work environment. But I'm also seeing things like training and development, management keeping me informed about
that all makes sense. But then that one kind of soft thing. So I want to just put in a plug for employee engagement surveys. I think they're incredibly important, and I know, Richard, you think so too.
Well, I think
you
too,
have actually.
I should say in full disclosure that my company provides that as a service. But yes, go ahead.
Exactly. And what would you say optimum size for a company to use one?
The optimum size, I would say the minimum size would be about 100.
Really?
75 to 100.
Okay.
I mean, you can do it for a smaller group, but I also just believe you can go out and ask people what they think if it's less than that. I mean, if you're doing it for free, then you could do it if you had 10 employees. But if you're going to invest in it, you know, it's probably a better investment if you have about 75 or more.
And I think if you're under 75, there are free templates on. But I encourage all companies I talk to, no matter their size. I mean, if you're a one-person operation, you look in the mirror and you give yourself an evaluation. No, but you know, 10 or above, find something just to survey your people. And
the point that's been brought up here in the chat, which is a very good one, is this idea of how clean is the data? Because if there is a lack of trust or transparency or et cetera, you're not getting those scores. I mean, the other thing too is just because someone ranked, because I've actually heard of certain organizations ranking very high as best places to work, and I've actually had the opportunity to work with some of these organizations, and I tell you, it is not congruent, not even remotely. And that could be a function of a bunch of things. You know, it's a PR thing. It's they BS the data when they submit it. Right? Because people aren't going to a million different organizations and ranking them. The whole metric is based on you apply, and based on your written submission and some other superficial metrics, they look at it. So I don't want to get so caught up in, like you're mentioning, you know, Hilton was number 1 and that surprised you. Well, to the point we made very early on when we asked the question in the chat box, you know, what's the best place you've ever worked? And we've said that you can have a great group in a garbage company, or you can have a wonderful company in a garbage group, and that's going to really affect your perception and how you perceive, you know, working with that organization.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think we're really talking about 2 things here. One is these, as you said, Sanjay, these things that you apply for, you kind of hope that you're going to get this award. The other is just the idea of doing employee surveys in the first place. And I'm biased, but and Jeff, said the same thing. I strongly support doing an employee survey. And I will say, and this will sound self-serving, so I'll make sure that I tell you that it's not. If you're going to do an employee survey, hire a company that knows what they're doing. Don't go to SurveyMonkey and do your own survey, and don't administer it yourself. And there are several reasons for that. And one is what you just brought up, Sanjay, or what was brought up in the chat, and that is how clean is the data. We know that if the employees know that you have created the survey and that you are managing the whole thing, it's very unlikely that you're going to get honest answers. With a reputable survey company, they will, and I don't know what Great Place to Work does in this regard. I suspect they do this, but they will say nobody is getting any individual information from us. We are not going to share any individual answers with anybody, no matter how much you try to pay us to do it. You'll get the aggregate, but you won't get any individual responses. So
Right.
that's what
surveys themselves. I mean, again, they say there's lies. What was it? Mark Twain credited with saying there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics, right? And so you just got to, the quality of the question can be so very biased. I mean, it's a joke that Michael Kerr uses all the time. He goes, on a scale of 9 to 10, how excited are you? Right. Yeah. So, and we can do the same thing with the surveys.
Well, I think especially when it comes to the numeric, and of course, Sanjay, you're the numbers guy, but you also, and it's easy to put numbers together and get graphs and so forth. It's more difficult to analyze, not using AI, but using, your own intelligence to analyze what people say in the comments. And it takes a lot of work to do that. But I think that's where the richness in those things comes, because the numbers they can be maybe reliable, maybe not. But what people are telling you is probably stuff you want to pay attention to. And
that's the other thing too, is they don't have to say it. I appreciate formal surveys, and there's absolutely, you can do that. But if you're doing a survey every 6 months or every year, doesn't mean between that you're not listening, because people want to talk and express. And if they're not happy, and if they keep bitching, the coffee machine never works, the coffee machine never works, instead of going, oh, they're being petty, change the damn coffee machine. And it's those small little things that people feel heard that make all the difference.
Yeah. Well, and again, one of the reasons that I find this interesting is to look at what people seem to say that makes a difference for them as to whether it's a great place to work or not a great place to work. Here's another one. This is Stryker, the company that makes, they make tanks for warfare, and they're headquartered in Michigan, and they're pretty high on the list. And 90% of the people who took their survey in 2023 said people here are given a lot of responsibility, and they like that. I think that also means that they have probably done a reasonably good job of hiring people who want a lot of responsibility, because you could get people who don't want a lot of responsibility. You give them a lot of responsibility and they say, oh, I don't like it here because it's too hard. So again, there's just so many different ways of looking at all of this.
I went up and down the list when you first sent it. And of course, the one that I clicked on first, which one do you think? Bacardi.
Yes, I see Bacardi, yeah.
And then I love that 87% of their employees say that it's a fun place to work.
Yeah, I bet it is. The later in the day it gets.
They also said 92% said that they're able to take off as much time as they think is necessary. So that's like the end of every day.
Yeah, right, yeah. As long as
the following morning when you're hungover, that's
right.
The moment my brain stops to feel.
I have a question for you, Jeff. Is there any of these that surprised you?
You're asking me?
I'm asking both of you.
Well, there were to me.
Hilton surprises me.
Yeah.
It was on the list, but especially that it was number one.
Yeah.
I would like to know a little bit more about that, and I'll spend some time, reading further and seeing what else I can see. But again, as Jeff brought out, we suspect this is probably at the corporate level, and you know what? It may be absolutely, legitimately a great place to work at the corporate level.
working for a hotel, a big international hotel company, I'm sure has a different feel than working the night desk job at a Hampton Inn in Sedalia, Missouri.
You know
Yeah.
what, though? I will say this. I actually think that it's beyond corporate, because if you look at it, it says 170,000 employees. And there's no way there's 170,000 employees.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So
Interesting. The other, I'm going to jump back to I didn't even look, but
Paris
whoever was
motivated.
talking about the actual stats, and you know, you can skew any survey. This doesn't even have to be their employee engagement survey. They could have asked X amount of people, do you receive a fair share of the profits made by the organization? Because they know that they're going to say yes. Or, you know, do you think that people have an opportunity to get recognized? Because they know they're going to say yes. So it does bother me that way too. Like, I'd like to know more about where the questions came from and how they did this.
Yeah.
But anyway, you asked what surprised us. And the one that surprised me, because I've worked with them probably on 3 separate occasions over 25 years, and that's Cisco. Cisco has a rich culture and old. They've been around for quite a while, and I'm shocked. You know, they if you don't know what Cisco does, they're the, I guess, world leader in technology that powers the internet. Basically, you know, it wasn't Al Gore inventing the internet. It wasn't Cisco either, but they built this company to power the internet. And the things they mentioned were trust. I can't remember. There were 3: trust, innovation, and something. But anyway, I don't know. It just sounds like a corporate line, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm making any sense. My head is about to blow up. So.
You know, when we were talking about this, I was poking at Richard, because he actually sent out the survey to us, going, this will be the foundation. And I said, I don't want to read up. By the way, do you know this? I'm putting this acronym in the chat. Anyone know this? I learned this from kids recently. TLDR. Anybody know what that means? Yeah, too long, didn't read.
Okay. Good for you, Bob.
There you go. Obviously exposed to teenagers, Bob is. But I jokingly said, you know, it's too much to read. How about we just use our own sort of experiences and for places that we like to work? And one of the best places that I actually had the opportunity to do work with, it was a trucking company. They've since been eaten by another trucking company, but at the time they were a good size. They were probably about $1 billion company. And what they did was, I worked with them in 2009, 2010, around there. And I had 40 VPs of the different divisions they had like a flatbed division, a dump truck division, and then this, that, and the other. And what I found just remarkable of these, there was 40 of these folks, 75% of them only had a high school education. So they weren't formally, you know, educated, but they were bloody smart. So one of the guys, they were doing there's a couple of day conference that I was part of, and I did 1 day of it. And one of the guys was talking about the 2008 crisis, how their revenues dropped from 65 million to 40 million in 1 year. So they dropped $25 million, yet they maintained the same profitability. And he was talking about the experience in which they had to do that. Anyways, I talked to the guy who started the company, and what I found amazing is this: what he did was he grew a lot through acquisition, and by virtue of doing that, every VP ran the company like its own company. So they had full autonomy. So even they centralized some things, for example, payroll, it was all done through the same company. But when it came time to the bonus, each VP got the bonus for the group. And I'm making up numbers, but say the bonus is $1 million, that VP could pocket it, or they could give it all out, or a percentage, whatever they wanted to do. And so they had full autonomy. But I walked into the group, and this is something my spidey sense has developed over the years. I can walk into an organization and I have a good sense of how it's managed. Like, I can smell, you know, is there's fear or if there's camaraderie. And these guys had the utmost respect for each other, and there was no backstabbing political BS. If one guy didn't like another guy, they would go, Richard, I think you're an asshole, and here's why. And they would duke it out, and they would agree with each
I've
other.
heard those very words. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But let me ask you, so did they have a fairly consistent culture across the entire organization, or was
No.
it spotty in those places?
It was each, well, within the group itself. So again, there's 40 divisions. Each division had its own culture, but overall, like again, what I loved was there was a fundamental underlying respect. Like
Mhm.
specifically, there's this one guy who used coaching, and he had executive coaches and with his leadership team and whatever. And the other guys were calling him a pansy, like, oh, we're truckers, you don't need this coaching stuff. But although they razz each other, they both respected one another, going, hey man, that works for you.
Mhm.
Totally cool. We're not doing it here. And his position was, that's great, but it works for me. They go have a beer. And it wasn't, because I've seen so much of this backstabbing, kind of like, oh, you know what they're doing in that division, and it was just one of the most refreshing things I'd seen. Like no,
And where did they come on the survey?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But
where are they on the list?
to my point, right? And they're not going to apply to be on the survey.
Right. Yeah. Let's look at a couple of comments. And first of all, one thing that Rob said is absolutely true, that people don't want to fill out the survey if they don't feel. They're certainly not going to fill it out for the purpose of our company getting a badge, you know, getting a blue ribbon or something. And they're not going to fill it out if there's no discernible outcome or resolution resulting from the feedback. They might do it the first year. They might do it the second year. They're not likely to do it the third year. But then. And Rob, you also asked, wasn't SAS statistics software firm on the list for the longest time? Yes, that's a company headquartered outside of Cary, North Carolina. I don't see it. The list that Jeff and I are working with is the top 25 in the world. I believe we still find SAS on the Fortune list of 100 best in the country.
I like how you just threw Sanjay under the bus.
Why? How did I do that?
Because you and I are looking at it. You said that means because we're rubbing it in that Sanjay
He
didn't
already
take
outed
the time.
himself. Sanjay already outed himself. He wasn't going to be a part of this. He was going to take a different look, which is
People
great.
have short memories. They don't remember that.
That's why. That's what makes this so great. We all do our own thing. And
That's
then
right.
I see the conversation between you and Fritz.
Yeah.
So just again, looking at some of these companies, if we look at the world's best places, it's a short list. It's only 25. They didn't go all the way to 100. They just go to 25. I'm amazed at the number of companies that are in technology.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to look at it here. Hospitality, transportation, IT, biotech, IT, professional services, IT, manufacturing. You know, I mean, it's so many in what I would call knowledge work, and not as many. So again, with financial services and insurance, information technology, gosh, so much in that, and
You know
a
what?
few
You say
production.
I'm hearing it in a very different lens. I'm hearing it from a profit margin standpoint. Typically, the sectors that have higher profit margins have the opportunity to have better organizational cultures because they have better resources. It's not often you find a mining company, you know, who works on a 0.1% margin, but their scalability is huge.
And yet, as we've learned today, those companies exist. They probably don't show up on these lists.
Right. And I think that's one thing that's surprising was there's actually a retail company on that list. Only one, right?
And it's in France, and
Yes.
French is not very good, but M. Langlais in Nord-Pas-de-Calais, France. So it's in the northern France, and it's number 23, 10,000 employees. And I mean, their score is an 82 overall, which is lower than some of the others, but it's probably better than an
I
awful
think what
lot.
surprised me also was that the number of companies on that top 25 I never heard of.
Well,
Not
yeah.
that I'm saying I know all this, but you know, you think that you would know most of them.
Yeah. And well, again, those that are not in North America, we might not be as familiar with unless they have a global footprint. And some of these, obviously, this French retail establishment probably does not. I think the thing that I take from this most, and this is the first year that I've seen this information laid out quite this way, which I find helpful, is looking at what the top 5 scoring questions are for each company, which just kind of tells me these are the things, if you use this survey as a meter, these are the things that are important to people. that people want to be involved, that they want to look at what they accomplish, get a sense of pride. Management shows a sincere interest in me as a person, not just an employee. And I don't see it. What I used to see for years was, and Fortune tends to do this in their write-ups of these, and that is to focus on the flashy things that look, that you can easily write about, things like nap pods and feng shui in the break room and stuff like that. And I've always said that those to me are a manifestation of culture, not that which makes the culture one way or the other.
And we were talking about this offline too, this idea of, you're saying take the contrarian approach to bring your animal to work day. That's not it. Again, those are offshoots. Those aren't the reason.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a chicken and egg thing. It's a cause and effect thing. And because you have a good work culture, you could bring your animal to work. It's not because you bring your animal to work, you have a good work culture.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And in fact, Jeff, weren't you telling us? Oh, he's multitasking. Weren't you telling us about?
I'm trying to get a package of cough drops open.
I thought his NyQuil had kicked in.
Sorry.
Tell us about the place where you could bring your animal to work, and it was in an interesting sector that you could bring your animal to work.
It was. I'm laughing because I know what you're going to say, but it was a grocery store, and they obviously did not have the pets in the store. They had them outside. They actually had babysitters for the pets, but their customers loved it. And Sanjay was joking that 10 walked into the store and not that many walked out. So,
but there was a great sale at the butcher shop, so it was fantastic.
Oh, moving right along, Rob brings up another good topic suggestion, that is just international norms and expectations around workplace culture. And I would even say in this conversation, one of the things that I see in the write-ups of the companies that are not in the United States would be their discussion of employee benefits. And having a daughter who works in the UK, over there, the things that are just expected, because they're, number one, they might be legislated, they might be guaranteed by law. My daughter also works in the public sector in the UK, so she gets lots of great benefits that here you might not get. And it has to do with sick leave and with maternity leave and family leave and things like that, that in some countries those are legislated to a far greater degree than they are here. The interesting thing for me about that is that it allows organizations in the US, and it's even different in Canada, of course, but in the US, it allows those organizations to distinguish themselves by providing benefits that might not necessarily be required.
Yeah. So that brings up something, a company I wanted to mention. I don't know if you guys have ever done work with them, but years ago, I worked with USAA Insurance out of San Antonio.
Yeah.
And for the Canadians, they're a huge insurance company that only insures veterans, armed forces.
There, yeah.
Either past, present, but their headquarters. I remember people telling me that there's like 0.01% turnover because they provide so many of those benefits you're talking about, Richard, that you can order dinner to take home from the cafeteria. They have their own dry cleaners, they have their own daycare. These are things that they don't have to do. Insurance not veterans. Carol says they insure non-veterans for medical insurance. Yeah,
that's good to know.
Carol knows insurance. I know that.
That's good to know for some of us. Thank you, Carol.
That's right.
I need that.
And they have the best prices. There you go, Richard.
No, it's true. I'll plug the first Contented Cows book, Contented Cows Give Better Milk. That was one of the things that we looked at, was companies that provide what we call lifestyle convenience benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And even 25 years ago, when that book came out, we noted companies like EDS and PepsiCo and some of those others. And they were 25 years ago, that kind of thing was pretty new.
Right.
But the idea, pretty much, let's have a dry cleaning. In fact, at EDS in Plano, Texas, they had all have to take the time to go off campus.
Richard, you cut out. So you said, in fact, at EDS,
Okay, is my connection back now?
Yes.
At EDS, Electronic Data Systems, in Plano, Texas, they offered automotive services there on campus because they didn't want people to leave the campus to have to get their car fixed, and same
Wow.
with cleaning and all of that. And their explanation was it helps us to stay more focused and more productive. I don't know if anybody would say, I don't think I'm going to go work there because they don't have dry cleaning, and I am going to work there because they do. But
No, I agree.
all part of maybe what goes into that.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
go ahead.
well, let me put you guys on the spot a bit here because I can. This survey, and I'm actually going to throw it into the link now. It goes all the way back to 2011. And the last 3 or 4 years, the top 3 haven't changed. The top 3 have been in different orders, but it's been Hilton, DHL, and Cisco.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of cool, but let me put you on, it goes all the way back to 2011. Who was number 1 in 2011?
Orders.
Nope. I'll give you a
No.
hint.
Was it DHL?
Nope. They're completely different.
Okay.
Not even on the list.
Google.
Yeah. Google was in 13 and 14, or 12 and 14. It was Microsoft in 2011. Then it went Google. Then it went SAS, and it went Google again. So again, though, but over time these things can shift, but it's not dramatic. Like so,
Yeah.
a lot of the top 5 from 13 years ago are no longer on even on the list. But at the same time, the last 4 or 5 years, the same top 5 more or less have been the same.
Yeah.
So it's hard to ruin a good culture, as much as it is hard to break a
one. Well, it's like we said, we know that culture takes a long time to move one way or the other.
Yeah.
I think the things that, and I think we probably would all agree to some degree on this, that the things that an individual evaluates in the quality of the culture of their job, it's going to be different for different people. But things like knowing, especially, I think maybe at a certain part in one's career, knowing that you've made a difference, that what you did mattered, if you can see the results of your work. So I'm going to put in a plug for my daughter's employer and do a little dad bragging here, because my daughter works for the British Broadcasting Company in Scotland, and she's in the marketing department. But this particular thing I'm going to tell you about is not necessarily her job. They asked everyone in the company, not everyone, to name a new podcast. So they were creating a new podcast. It was on crime. It takes place in Scotland. And she suggested the name Crime Next Door. And that's what they picked. And so she was so excited to share with us. She says, guess what? There's a new podcast. It's called Crime Next Door. And I named it. So something like that, that she has the ability to do it. They didn't pay her any extra for that, but she gets bragging rights on that. And I think that's the thing where it wasn't some group of people sitting in the executive boardroom saying, well, let's come up with something. Let's ask people who really might know. And I think that's one very small example of the kinds of things that say to people, yeah, this is the kind of place I want to hang around for a while.
And there's even a ripple effect on that too, like because people have that ownership, but the person who is your daughter's coworker who works in the cubicle next to her will say, well, sat next to the girl who came up with that name.
Right, who made the name of it? Yeah.
Seriously though, but we have our touch points. Like my kids will always roll their eyes. If I'm ever driving through my old neighborhood, I'm like, oh, that tree wasn't.
I would roll my eyes, but it would be a little painful today.
No,
but
okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You can double up next week or in 2 weeks. But it is that you have those connections, and every time you have that connection, as obscure as it may seem, it makes you feel like you belong. That's what it is. As long as the connection is made in your own head, it's legit. Right. So that's what it is. And if I was sitting next to Lindsay, who named the podcast, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Me, not so much. I'm sorry, but that's good for you. I don't know
What'd
that
you
if I
say,
was
Jeff?
sitting next to her, I'd be going, yeah. So.
Oh, now Jeff's the one cutting out.
Oh, okay.
You don't know what?
I don't know if I was sitting next to Lindsay, if I'd be the one going, yeah, but
You wouldn't, but
Yeah,
yeah.
you're one of those. I'd be like, I know Richard, whose daughter named the podcast. I've already tweeted it out.
we can brag. Listen, before we wrap things up, I owe Carol. I owe Carol an apology. I know she wasn't in the insurance business; she was in the accounting business. So, I don't know. Yeah, I said that, and I'm sorry, Carol.
We'll beat him later, don't worry, Carol.
Exactly,
It's man cold. It's because it's man.
guys. It's time to wrap this up.
It is. So what's the date of our next party?
May 29th.
May 29th, and we may have a guest. I will know later today.
I hope
I
so.
will not be here because I'm speaking in Idaho. Woot woot.
Woo, your
Good
own
for
bite.
you.
Okay.
I'll be in Boise.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope to be here. And when we're all here, we'll look forward to seeing all of you. Thanks so much for being here. And again, we'll see you every other Wednesday.
Thanks, folks.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.